Welcome. My name is Robert Brock. I'm the Director of Education here at the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences, also known as CRAS, where we teach all things related to audio production. That's the technical side of how, for example, the music you listen to, how it gets recorded in a recording studio, or when you're watching a movie, you're not just watching it, you're listening to it as well. So how does the dialogue get captured? How do the sound effects get integrated? The musical score get synchronized. We teach all of that. We also teach things like audio integration into video games, so the right sound plays at just the right moment in gameplay. And another element we teach here at CRAS is audio for live television broadcast. And in fact, if you can hear the sound of my voice right now, that's a really good sign, because that means that the students that are in the audio for TV phase of our program, that means they've done their job. And really, jobs is what it's all about here at CRAS. And so let's talk about some of the jobs in audio for TV. One of those jobs is called an A2. An A2 is responsible for things like this microphone. For example, this microphone just didn't, I didn't bring it with me. That's set up and tested by an A2. And it's really got to work right the first time, because in live TV, there is no second chance. There's no take two. We can't pause the show. But we also have to be, conscious that any piece of equipment could fail at any time. So what happens if this mic was to have a problem in the middle of the show? We can't just stop the show, but that's why a few feet away from me, I've got a student A2 poised and ready to go with a backup microphone. So we can just swap that out and keep on moving if necessary. A2 is also responsible for things like this earpiece that I have in. It's hooked up to a belt pack that I'm wearing, and that is how I hear communications from my director and producer, who are giving the verbal instructions of the show. They're letting me know when to start talking, or sometimes more importantly, when to stop talking. And that's all set up, tested by the A2. And between this room, there are dozens and dozens of connections between this room and where there's another room called the audio control room, where there's another job position called the A1. And in fact, there's a live shot right now of our student A1 sitting behind the Studio Vista console. They are actually controlling all the sound that's going out to you. And so my microphone's volume, any music that we might play, any like the intro bumper that comes in the beginning, they control the volume for all of that. And what's interesting about that room is it's actually not in this building. It sits inside of a 42-foot mobile production truck, a trailer essentially. That's an exterior shot of it. That's not a live shot. That's during one of our outings. Because it's mobile, we're able to take it places like Phoenix Suns basketball games, Arizona Diamondbacks baseball games, NASCAR, music festivals. And when we go out to these events, we are going out not to actually put a television show on air. We actually park it right next to the people who are, in fact, putting a TV show on air. And then they give us copies of all their audio and video signals so that students that we're able to take on site to those events can actually play or kind of pretend to mix a live television show with all those elements without the pressure of actually being live on air. And so it's a very unique opportunity. However, it's into our regular schedule. We're really kind of at the mercy of the go out to events like that. Been very fortunate to get his permission to capture when we've gone out to these events and bring him back home to CRAS and play with it. And any number of students experience what it's like to mix a live TV with actual real world elements of that. That A1 role, having that ability to experiment and play with that is really important, because the A1's job is very unique in audio production. It requires a very special set of skills to master, and it's hard to do that if you don't have an ability to practice. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to have you take a look at a little brief segment where you're going to learn a few more things about what we do here at CRAS. And then afterwards, I'm going to spend some time talking to you with a little more of that, about that role of a broadcast A1. All right? I'll see you in just a minute.
CRAS is the premier audio recording, sound engineering, and music production school. The place where you can follow your dream of a career in the recording arts. Sound and music are all around us. It's in the games we play, on our portable devices, on the radio, TV, and in the movies we watch. Where does it all come from? Who makes all of this sound and music? CRAS people make it.
All right, and welcome back. And so that last shot there in that segment was inside of our mobile unit during one of our NASCAR outings, which is very fitting because this very large audio mixing console spent the better part of a decade supporting NASCAR. Now it's here supporting our students for what we kind of refer to as an A1 simulator. So the A1 sits behind an audio console like this, and the main responsibility of an A1 is to support that live show with sound. And so, for example, what we have up on our screen here is footage we were given permission to capture during one of our Phoenix Suns outings. And in the upper right-hand corner is what people saw the day this particular game was played. And so if you think, well, what would you want to hear? Maybe a player puts up a three-pointer, we might want to hear the sound of the ball swoosh through the net. So how does that work? Well, that other job I mentioned earlier called the A2, A2 actually mounts a microphone directly to the rim of the basket, and that microphone's audio signal comes all the way back to the A1's console, and there's a volume control for it present on one of these faders. And so down here, this fader here, underneath it says net R, that's the net that's on the right side of the court, and if I push that up, then we'll hear whatever that microphone's picking up. Since there's two nets on an NBA court, over here to the left it says net L, so there's a net on the left-hand side of the court, and so I can bring that up, and then in between the net mics, there's additional microphones that are set up to pick up the sound of the player movements. This could be like their sneaker squeaks, them dribbling the ball, and so I can blend these in to create the overall ambience of being in that environment. It's what we call the effects mix. Now, I've got some other microphones further to the right that are super, super important. These are the announcer microphones. The announcers sit courtside, and they're wearing a headset exactly like what I'm wearing right here. That's hooked up to an announcer panel exactly like this one down here. That's all set up and tested by the A2. And so as the A1 now, I'm just going to kind of bring the announcer microphones up over the top of the ambience so we can hear what they have to say. And that's kind of what we expect to see more importantly, when we're tuning into something like a professional basketball game. Now you can see I've got a lot of other faders that are over here on my console. It's like, well, what's all that for? That's all for mostly any audio that's been pre-recorded. So this could be the music that brings us in or out of a commercial break. It could be even things like sometimes a graphic will pop up on the screen and it'll have a sound effect associated with it, like a swoosh. I've got a volume control for that. And then a big part of sports is video replay. And so while I don't initiate the video replay as the A1, another operator does that, I do control the volume of sound associated with any of those replays. Now, on a show, there can be multiple replay devices, very typical replays. Now, on a show, there can be multiple replay devices, very typical to have 4, 8, 10, 12, or even double that, depending on the size of the show. And I would have a volume control for each potential replay device that I may need to bring up and down at different points in the show. Which brings up a good question. It's like, how do I know when to turn something up or down? A lot of it's watching, but a big part of it's listening, not to the mix that I'm creating. I'm certainly listening to that mix that I'm creating for the viewers at home. But more importantly, I'm actually listening to voices that are coming out of these smaller speakers up here for me that carry the voice of the producer and the director. And they are actually sitting in a different control room, and they're giving the verbal commands to the entire crew for what's going to happen in the show. So they're letting us know, are we going to a commercial break? Are we going to run a video replay? And this is what helps tip me off as to what's going to happen next, because I'm really just listening to their instruction. And that is, in fact, where the real skill of an A1 is this ability to create a great sounding mix for the viewers at home, while at the same time almost more intently listening to the sounds of these instructions coming so that I don't miss anything. And that's a hard skill to master, and that's why it's a unique environment, for me to even, be in this kind of situation here where we can simulate that without being live on air. So hopefully, because I've got a little bit of that skill of an A1, I know that in 5 seconds, you're going to check out another feature segment on what we do at Crass, and we're going to come back and talk about another type of live production.
Crass graduates have earned hundreds of gold and platinum records, received Grammys, and engineered audio for major films and television shows. In fact, the music you're listening to right now was created and produced by Crass students as part of their hands-on Crass education. To learn more about what it means to be Crass, visit crass.edu for videos, teacher bios, curriculum, and more. Be Crass. Be secure in your skills and without a mountain of debt.
All right, so welcome back. I want to talk about another type of live production. Instead of live television production, what we might refer to as live event production, what we oftentimes call in our industry either sound reinforcement or just simply live sound. Probably the best example of this is a concert. You want to hear what the band is playing on stage, and to fill that environment, whether that be a small club or an arena, there's usually a PA system. And if there's a PA, that usually means there's going to be audio engineering involved, and that one of the very common positions for that is what's called the front of house engineer. The front of house engineer sits behind an audio console like this that is actually sitting out amongst the audience members and basically just choosing what to blend into the PA system, choosing what to put through the PA system. And so the idea is kind of the same. Each one of these faders represents a volume control for a unique element. And so, for example, if let's say the band has a drummer, if the front of house engineer wants a lot of control over the sound of the kick drum, we put a microphone on the kick drum. That microphone comes to one of the faders, and then I can bring that fader up so we can turn up the volume of just the kick drum alone. If we want the same kind of control over the snare drum, then we bring up the snare drum. And again, I can blend that to my liking. On a drum kit, we might have a lot of other microphones up there for the toms and cymbals, and so I can bring all of that up to kind of create the overall drum kit sound that I want. Now on drums, I can actually easily eat up 10, 12, dozen or more channels of audio just on drums, which might make you think I'm going to run out of channels real quick on this relatively small console. But if you watch here, I'm going to press a button on the console, and the faders are going to jump down, yet we're still hearing the drums. What I've just done is move to a different layer, where now this first fader has changed meaning and now represents the volume for the bass guitar. And then this next fader, for example, might be the electric guitar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So by switching between these layers, I can actually manage a whole lot of sound from a relatively small space. Speaking of small space, this is just a small classroom. We actually teach our live sound classes out of this 6,000 square foot live sound venue, where we've got 12 of these digital mixing consoles. We can put a band up on the front of the stage and push their sounds of the microphones to out all 12 of the mixing consoles. Students can do a preliminary mix first on headphones, and then the instructor can reroute the output of any one of those audio consoles into the basically the tour grade PA system from a company called L Acoustics that's in the front of the room. And so we have bands come in for these sessions all the time. Students can actually pre-configure the console using their laptops without even having to have the console, load in settings into the console so that when the band comes in, then they are off and running, ready to go. And in fact, what I want you to check out now is this is actually one of the bands, this is Joe Morrison Friends, one of the bands playing in the Crass Live Sound venue. And if you like what you hear, that's because the students have been prepared for their job. All right, I'll join you afterwards in just a moment. right, and welcome back. And again, that was Joe Morris and friends playing in the Crass's Conservatory's live sound venue. And if you like what you heard there, again, that's because students are doing their job. And again, jobs is what it's all about, but I want to focus more in on the student side of things. We've been talking a lot about, the equipment, the facilities, but in my opinion, it's really the students that make Crass the special place that it is. And students are actually coming here from all over the country, or even all over the world. There's a few of them right there in that shot that were serving as the A1s in this segment of the program. And when students get here at Crass, they find that they have all this in common with each other. Right? When it comes to one of their major life goals, everybody wants to be involved in audio production in one form or another. And I think that makes it very easy for students to connect with each other, to support themselves, to support each other, I should say, and help each other out as they go through a really rigorous program. And so, when just a number of years ago, we had some students come to us in administration, and they just said, hey, if there's any other students that are here that might need some additional support or help, just let me know. And so we took that and we formalized that in what we call the Crass Mentor Program. So if you've been wondering what this big purple M is for, M stands for mentor. Students, when they reach a certain part of the program, can apply to become mentors, and they're saying, I'm willing to volunteer my time to help out in whatever way. That could be maybe helping, maybe I could be somebody's study buddy, or maybe they just want to know where a good taco's in town, and I can just help them get acquainted to the area. I'll help out. This is just a handful of the mentors that have come through the program in the past. Every 3 weeks, actually, mentors are coming into the program. Sadly, other mentors are leaving the program, but that's not a bad sad. It's actually because they're going off into the industry. And so one of the things that we love to do for our student mentors is to formally recognize what we think is a pretty important trait through a letter of recommendation. And in this letter, we're really talking about the heart and attitude of a mentor, somebody who wants to help their peers. We think that's a pretty notable, employable trait that a potential employer should be aware of. And so I love to sign off on those letters, as well as Brandon Valfrey signs off on that. He's our faculty liaison to the mentor team. We have a couple other student groups here at Crass, by the way. We also have WOA, which is Women of Audio. Women only make a small percentage of the people working in the technical roles in our industry, so we've got a group just for the ladies, and that's overseen by Nancy Charlo as the faculty liaison. And then we have AES, which is the Audio Engineering Society. This is actually a global trade organization, but we have a super active student chapter, in fact, recognized as being one of the most active in all the land, and so super proud of that group, and Hannah Fraley, our faculty liaison to that group. So again, my name is Robert Brock. I'm the Director of Education here at the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time to learn about what we're doing here at Crass, teaching everything about the world of sound. See you next time.